All right, so let's start it off. Quarterback of the year. I mean, I think this one is a little bit easy. It's probably predictable. I mean, the kid has been a stud his entire career at the previous two schools. I'm going to go with Dylan Gabriel at Oregon. I just think with the weapons they have, and we'll talk about some of those guys as we get to some of the different position groups, but I just think that he's going to put up a ton of yards. He's a dual threat kind of guy. I was a really big fan of him at Oklahoma. I think that he's a guy that's going to be able to really give Oregon a chance to win a national championship. I mean, that's a team that a lot of people are talking about. They're going to be top 5 in the AP poll. Like, that's a very dangerous team. And, the one thing I will say about Oregon that I'm interested to see is how Dan Lanning kind of handles this. I mean, he's going to have a lot of big games. I mean, the Buckeyes come there. He's got to come to the big house, right? And that's kind of been the one thing with him in his Oregon program. They haven't won a ton of big games per se. But I do think with I know Bo Nix was a first-round pick, weirdly, but I do think that Gabriel is a step up at quarterback, and I think that they're going to be really dangerous. So I'm going with Gabriel, but Jess, I'll let me know what you think. And, there's a couple other guys we'll probably talk about.
Yeah, I mean, having a step up from Bo Nix at the college level is actually really impressive for Dan Lanning in Oregon, even considering that they have unlimited NIL and all that stuff. I mean, that definitely has a play and a part in that for sure. The one thing when we're talking about quarterbacks in the Big Ten, though, that I wanted to talk about was like there are a lot of unknowns in the Big Ten at quarterback. There really aren't any for sure's, right? Like there are zero sure things in the Big Ten from top to bottom, and that's pretty crazy to me. I don't know. You all of a sudden you have 18 teams, and it's like you would think that somebody would be a sure thing, but you start with Dylan Gabriel. I think he's probably as close to a sure thing as possible, but still in a new team with a new team in a new offense, right? So you just don't fully know how that's going to work out. And then you have Will Howard at Ohio State. I have my reservations. I'm biased, of course, of being a Michigan guy, but I still think Kyle McCord is a better option than Will Howard. That's just my take. But you don't know what he's going to be like. Aiden Childs at Michigan State, I think he could be like a firecracker for them where
he's going to be fun.
Yeah.
Like he's going to be fun, but I don't know if he's quite ready. I don't know if that roster is quite ready to be, the necessary talent around him to be in this conversation. I do think he's a really, elite talent. I mean, he was a big time recruit. I liked what I saw from him in spots at Oregon State, but where's the ball going? Is that offensive line going to hold up? Like you said, firecracker for sure is how I would kind of describe him. But yeah, I mean, then Drew Allar, right? Like, yeah, last year, a lot of hype, the West Virginia game, I was like, oh, maybe this kid's for real. And then he just kind of started to struggle, was right around 7 yards an attempt. Like, it wasn't impressive.
A lot of people are like talking about him like he is one of those sure things. Like he's going to come back and be a top quarterback in the nation. And I don't know if I believe that. I think he's shown flashes for sure. I think that he has been okay, but am I ready to say, yeah, he's going to be, just because he's a highly rated QB coming out of high school he did not make them go last year, Tanner. He did not.
No.
It was their run game that did end up making them go. And really throughout the year, their defense carried them. Their offense did not make them go one bit. So, yeah, I don't know. I think that I struggle to sit there and say, all right, is Drew Allar going to be like a guy that's the number? I was just doing some research before. They had him at number 2 in the Big Ten, and from a 247 article. I just don't know if I'm willing to say that. And then you go down the list. You've got Miller Moss out at USC. You've got Will Rogers at Washington, which I think he's a good QB. I think again they just had so much turnover. It's going to be a miracle if they can put it together. One person I am very, very intrigued on is how Dylan Raiola steps in at Nebraska. Think I don't want to talk too much about our boys down in Nebraska again because we did it the other day. I'll give them some props. I mean, I think there's a chance after what year are we in of Matt Rule?
This is year 2.
Just year 2. Okay. I couldn't remember if it was year 2 or year 3. So year 2 of Matt Rule, it feels like they got something going there, right? I don't know if they're going to be too like, all right, are we in the top of the Big Ten yet? But probably, upper third, something like that. And then having a talent like Dylan Raiola come in and command it, and he's going to be a true freshman, right? So I think it's going to be interesting to see how he comes into the fold. Does he make a splash right away, or are they still going to be like, a fluttering team?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of, like you said, unproven guys. I mean, sitting here in Ann Arbor, we don't really know. Totally. I mean, there's 3 guys that are really kind of being talked about to be the starting quarterback, with Alex Orji, Davis Warren, and Jack Tuttle. And then you also got Jaden Denegal in there. You got the freshman Jaden Davis. Like, you don't really know what it's going to look like. So, the story of the Big Ten is kind of similar to the story of Michigan, right? Like, you just don't know what that quarterback position is going to give you. So I'm going to take the guy that I'm most confident in and being able to come in, throw the ball, make big plays with his legs. To your point on Will Howard, like, and we'll talk about the running backs coming up, but I'm really curious what the Chip Kelly offense is going to look like.
Yeah.
It feels like they're kind of building to like what Will Howard did at Kansas State. It's just like run the ball, like quarterback power stuff, like some options. Like, I don't know, man. Like, and we could talk about that with receivers too, because you think about Emeka Egbuka, right? And like, where's the ball coming from? So, but yeah, I'm going with Dylan Gabriel on this one. Just feels pretty easy, and maybe you'll might hear his name later on. I don't know. There's so many guys.
I think, well, one person that we haven't even mentioned yet, which is kind of funny based on some other things, is Cade McNamara at Iowa. I mean, I don't know. You're looking at that offense now. It's a new offense. You don't have Brian Ferentz anymore. I don't know. Who knows? Could he make a splash in is this year 5 now for him?
This is 6th year.
6th year.
Yep.
If it's either now or never, bud. I don't know. I mean, they're talking again down in Iowa, just like they were this time last year, that it's going to be new. Keep doubting us. They're saying Cade McNamara hasn't been healthy since he's been in Iowa, and so I don't know. We'll see. I'm not ready at all to jump on the Cade McNamara is going to have a breakout season train. Especially, I haven't looked at their schedule. But I can't imagine it's an easier schedule than what they've had in the West for last year, the year before, which they basically just they just stumbled into the Big Ten championship multiple times against Michigan in the past 3 years.
Yeah, they do have Ohio State in early October, but otherwise it is pretty manageable. The 2 Pac-12 teams they get are Washington, UCLA. So manageable. That defense, I mean, we'll talk about some of those guys probably here as we get on the defensive side of the ball, but yeah, gonna be very interesting. So I think we're both in agreement on Gabriel here.
I'm actually gonna go. I'm gonna go Raiola. I'm gonna go Raiola. Yeah,
true
I think
freshman.
that's a hot take for sure. But I think that like I really do think that they've been looking for something like him for a while now. They've been looking for somebody. I know that they had good, QBs under Scott Frost, like Adrian Martinez, all that stuff. But I don't know. I think that I've seen some flashes. It is a little, I'm not going to go as far as like he is JJ McCarthy, but it's JJ-esque in the fact that like big talent coming onto a team that is like getting solidified, right? And there's no doubt that Nebraska has had talent, right? And it's just like the biggest series of misfortunate events that have happened to them over the past 5 years. And so I don't know. I could see, I wouldn't be shocked if Nebraska comes out with Dylan Raiola. He has a great year and they end up like 8-4, 9-3. And it's like, holy shit, Dylan Raiola as a sophomore all of a sudden has Nebraska like, climbing into the top.
Well, he's a true freshman.
I know. I'm saying the year.
Oh,
after.
yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I
what's
think
their schedule look like this year too, by the way?
I think if you're looking at that, it's almost like you have to grade that one on like a coach of the year scale, right? Because like, if Sharon Moore goes 11-1, you're probably not going to win the award. But if Kurt Signetti down at IU goes 9-3, he's probably getting that award, right? So maybe if you grade it on that scale, I think it's going to be extremely interesting for them. O-line has plagued them for quite a while. So I'm going to be very curious to see. I mean, they got a lot of experience along the O-line, so if they can keep him upright, I do like some of their skill position players. I mean, they've got Colorado at Nebraska. They've got to go to the shoe.
If
they go
lose
to
that
USC
game against Colorado, I'll be pissed. They cannot lose that game.
No,
they're so much more talented.
They were better last year, and Jeff Sims just turned it over however many times. So that was really the big issue for them last year. All right, so Dylan Gabriel for me, Dylan Raiola for you. A little shocked.
You don't like that pick? What?
It's crazy. I mean, he's a true freshman. I mean, true freshman quarterbacks typically are not that good. But I like the boldness of it.
We'll see. We'll see how it goes.